Howdy, y'all.
I'm going to be continuing my education series, bump back to the basics. I'm going to try my best to explain the difference between variables and factors. Alright? So here we go. Alright, a variable is a measure that has value. And this value varies, and this variation in value can be verified by others. A discrete measure. Generally, when we talk about discrete measures, people think about things such as length or mass, meters and grams. Other common examples of variables are height in a population. A guy is either 6 feet or he's 5'10" or 6'2". Another better, more basic understanding of a variable would be light. Let's define light as either the presence or absence of a photon at any particular point in space and time. Either it is there or it's not. A 1 or 0. A positive and negative. Present, yes, no. A discrete measure. And then the variation in photons can be how many are there. Photons can be measured up into the quadrillion plus astronomical amounts of photons. We won't get into brilliance and intensity and stuff like that. Alright, so like how many photons are present at a particular point in space and time. And then another, and this will go into intersectionality and bell curves later on, skin color. Skin color is just how many pigment-producing alleles, sections of code, genetic code, do you have stacking next to each other. That's essentially all it is. Someone who has no pigment-producing alleles is called an albino, and they are very susceptible to the aforementioned light intensity. Someone who has a lot of pigment-producing alleles is very dark, and they can absorb a lot of photons and not suffer very many negative effects versus the person who has no pigment-producing alleles. Well, that'll be important to understand as we move on. But those are just 3 classic examples. Now, each variable is given a value, as before mentioned: height, feet, light, photons, joules, and skin color, amount of pigment-producing alleles. Right. And these values are typically given a numeric representation, a numeric value, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We won't get into the weird philosophical what's it about a 5, or a 6, or a 2, or a 3. We can all agree that in certain scenarios there is one example is money. There's $1 or $2 or 3 or 4. We can also agree that 2 plus 2 of whatever equals 4. $2 plus $2 equals $4. 2 cows plus 2 cows equals 4 cows. We won't get into the philosophical what's it about numbers. Right. But this leads to the difference between quantitative and qualitative measures. And quantitative measures are discrete measures, variables. And qualitative measures are non-discrete measures, and thus, in my understanding, not variables. A good example between quantitative and qualitative measures is someone saying there's 1,861 penguins over there versus another person saying that's a whole lot of penguins over there. One is a measure of the discrete measure of the number of subjects, the number of penguins, versus a subjective qualitative measure of the amount of penguins. Quantitative, qualitative. And this is where it gets misleading in the literature. Many things are measured qualitatively and not quantitatively. And this leads to factors. Now, you have to understand it's this conversion that I'm going to talk about later on. That's the problem. Now factors are just groups of variables. Example would be like combining the aforementioned height with weight to come up with a BMI. We all know that BMI is a flawed attempt to quantify healthy weight easily. We all know that BMI is bullshit, scientifically speaking. Another example related to light, partly cloudy. Yeah, weathermen just throw together a bunch of variables and they just come with a measure partly cloudy. And then with skin color, race includes more than just how much pigment you're producing. Race is a whole lot of other variables that lump into the factor of race. This will go into understanding bell curves, and intersectionality later on. Now, factors tend to use qualitative measures that are then converted into quantitative measures. Examples of this are HR testing and personality testing in general. Oddly, also ecology. The difference between ecology's use of qualitative measures being converted into quantitative ones, and psychology's use of qualitative measures being converted into quantitative ones, is that ecology takes a whole bunch of visible ecological standards that have been agreed upon and tries to simply describe them in a simple number. Whereas psychology attempts to take the specific person and attach them back out to a larger environment. Instead of describing the environment with a single measure, they take a single measure and try to describe the entire person. I hope that's clear, but it's the difference between inferential and deductive kind of stuff. Now, moving on. So the difference between the College of Science and the College of Liberal Arts is essentially the difference between quantitative measures, discrete quantitative measures, and qualitative ones, qualitative measures. The difference between variables and factors, the difference between facts versus feelings. Remember, English is not a perfect language. We won't get into what red, when someone says red, someone means, what do you mean red? What kind of red? Crimson? Burgundy? Yeah, the whole red pill, burgundy pill, purple pill. What do you mean red? What do you mean scarlet? Crimson? Barnyard? Red? What kind of red? Right, okay. But facts are like numbers. Data. Don't be confused when they convert feelings into facts. When they convert qualitative measures into quantitative ones. Don't get confused there. Right? Because that's where the confusion comes in. So, what value does something have? What is its cost relative to its benefit? Now, different people will value different things. Their measures of worth will vary, but one should attempt to measure any things or some things' true value. Its true cost, its true worth, its true benefit versus its cost. Naturally, a very basic statement. I'm trying to get things agreed upon here. This is why understanding the difference between variables and factors is important. It is understanding the difference between science and art, between MGTOW and feminism, facts versus feeling, truth versus lie. That's my take on it, right? So, understand when I say I hate factors, the reason why I hate factors is because factors, they're loose, they're weird measures. And this goes to the difference between gender and sex. Yeah, if you really want to get screwed up in the head, right? Understand that there's like 7 different sexes, technically speaking, biologically speaking, but there's only 2 genders. And maybe, liberal body liberals want to create a third other, whatever. And just understand that that's the difference. Sex and gender, the difference in science and liberal arts. Also, they have a different standard for making a type 1 error. Been through that a long time ago, months ago. Alright, but this is what I mean when I say variables and factors, y'all. Mostly facts and feelings. Numbers and just, whatever. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Alright, well, you guys have a nice day. And always remember to go your own way. Yours truly, Ed.